Our speaker is Olivier Onghena. Olivier has a very eclectic route. He started his career in diplomacy. He worked for the European Commission in Brussels, and then he decided to start his own company, which is called, it's GINP, so it's Global Inspiration and Noble Purpose Institute. We have the privilege today to have him here and to talk with us about really what motivates him, which is this famous noble purpose. How we can think about our role in society, our role as a person, our role as a company. But I don't say anything more. I would just ask you to welcome him and ask Olivier to come on the floor. Thank you, Olivier.
Today I would like to speak about sense of higher purpose. And it is true that I have a very unusual career track. I would like to see myself as an entrepreneur advisor who is very passionate about purpose. Purpose as human beings, purpose in teams, and purpose in organizations. And when I say organizations, I do not necessarily only mean enterprises, because there is also purpose, and I think we really need purpose also in governments. We need purpose in political parties, we need purpose in NGOs, we need purpose in all kinds of institutions that are in the line of cultural, social, societal activities. Why purpose? We believe that things are really changing, and we come from a time where this gentleman, Milton Friedman, said the following. He said that actually the purpose of business is business. It's making profits. That is over. Organizations more and more want to reflect about why are we in business? How can we solve societal problems? How can we solve ecological problems? How can we solve all kinds of important matters and issues? And what is interesting to see is that they even make money. They even make a lot of money. Much more than those organizations who only think about profits. There is another initiative that is called the conscious capitalism movement. What you see there is that very interesting organizations start joining that because they think that capitalism, as it was before, the way how Milton Friedman described it, is totally outdated. And these organizations seem to be extremely successful in the results they create, in the profits they make, in the people they attract, in the people they keep. People are really proud to work for an organization that stands for something that is much more than the next quarter result. So a higher purpose is not something that you use as a marketing slogan. Higher purpose is really something that sits in the depth, in the soul, I would say, of the organization, which means by that, in the soul of the leaders. So what we see with successful organizations that use and have higher purpose is that it is an extension of the owners and the leaders. The owners and the leaders have to work together. The shareholders and the owners, if the owners would be different from the shareholders, they have to work together. Let's look now at the classical way of building a business. We all know this. What we have is we create a mission, and from the mission we go to the strategy, and from the strategy we create what we need to have the machinery working. Now the mission, bluntly said, that is about ourselves. We want to be the biggest, the nicest, the largest, the most, what have you. But a client really doesn't care about that. I mean, why would a client become better because we have a nice mission? So then what organizations do, they say, well, you know what, let's put a vision on this, which means that in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, we will be covering that market, we will be launching a new series of products, we will grow our turnover up to that percentage. Well, it's kind of like interesting for some people, but it's still not exciting enough for the market. So what we do is we put on top of everything the higher purpose. And the higher purpose has such a force, has such an alignment force of people in the organization, has such an attraction force to clients, has such an attraction force to suppliers, which means that at that moment, you don't really need mission and vision anymore, because the higher purpose is a force that is without time. It is not for the coming 3 years or the coming 5 years. It is like forever. Who we are, what we stand for, is who we are, what we stand for. And it's not only for this year and next year, the time of our strategy, eventually for the next 5 years. It's really who we are. And it has this alignment force of the troops in the organization, because people, and I will explain that later on, people really want to work for an organization that stands for something that elevates their spirit. So you can look at an organization as a bunch of people working together with a strategy, with some products or some services, some clients, somewhere in the world. Yeah, fair enough. But there is much more in an organization. And that is why we call it an organization has 4 bodies. The first body, which you all know, is what we call the physical body. Sorry, I'm going too fast. The physical body. The physical body very much is really about the structures, the processes. It's like the hardware in the organization. The second body, which we call the mental body, is what we call the competencies, the know-how, the skills we have in the organization. It's all our wisdom we have. The third body, becomes more interesting, is what we call the emotional body of an organization. And the emotional body of an organization are the relationships we build. That is, the relationships amongst us, but also the relationships amongst the organization and the outer world, and the outer world and the organization. But the most important body of the organization is what we call the spiritual body. The spiritual body is really what sits in the depth of the organization. It is that body that really drives the energy from a systemic perspective. Much harder, much faster, much stronger than any other of the 3 bodies. Now, what we see from an organizational perspective is that many organizational leaders who do not know about this or who do not believe in this, they try to work with mainly the physical body, sometimes with the mental body. And it's often hard work, because the spiritual body doesn't get its place. The spiritual body of the organization feels like not being attended to. And it is only at the moment when that body is being attended to that something energetically happens in the organization, where alignment comes, where people start understanding what it is about, where people feel motivated, and energetically, it is a really different kind of thing. I truly believe that it is by working, in the sense that creating added value as an individual, for as long as it is connected to supporting, to helping the development of a higher purpose, that we realize ourselves. What I'm saying is the following, is that I believe that working, not for a salary, not for a package, not for the prestige, but working because it is the way for us as individuals to really self-actualize, to really realize who we are, with our wisdom, with our passion, with our competencies, with our drive, with all our insights, with what we stand for as human beings. That if we find the right organization where we can develop, deploy all that, we become extremely aligned with ourselves, and we become extremely powerful in what we do and how we do it. So I'd like to plead for organizations to start thinking, how can we become ecosystems where people, by working, by contributing to a higher purpose, become more of themselves. And what I see with the thousands of people we are in touch with every year, when I ask an audience of 100, 1,000 or 10,000 people, raise your hands for those who really feel happy in what they're doing. You have like 10%, 15%, sometimes you have a bit more, sometimes you have like 5 hands. And I'm wondering, like, what are we doing? Why is it that we're working? Why are we working in an organization where we don't feel happy? And as people are so misaligned or not connected, the performance of the organization really drops dramatically. And then what the organizations have to do, what the leaders have to do, is they have to bring in all kinds of processes and procedures to motivate people. Research was done, and the question was asked, What is it that you need to liberate your work energy? So take it that we all have 100% of energy to do things. And when we ask that question to all kinds of people in all kinds of organizations, 98% of the people said, we need something that gives purpose to our life, to liberate the full potential of our energy, our work energy. 2% said financial parameters, like material things, like material KPIs, turnover, market share, net profits, net results, what have you. The problem is, we figured out that these 2% are very often the people who lead the enterprises, who lead the businesses. And so they create a thinking, they have a mental model where they say, well, for us it's very important to drive a business by financial parameters. That is, that they become overly important in their presence, energetic presence in the organization, which means that 98% of the people, energetically speaking, start shrinking. But if your leadership and your organizational culture, this conscious culture I was talking about, becomes everything but conscious because it is only driven by financial parameters, you lose 98% of your organizational potential full energy. And that is, by the way, the reason why so many organizations are so disconnected from their people, or people disconnected from their organization. The big question here is how to unleash that energy, the 98%, where people go like, I need something like higher purpose, or I need a higher purpose or a purpose to liberate the maximum of my energy. Let's take this as an example, the iceberg. You know that about 10 to 15% of an iceberg is visible, which means that about 85% is non-visible. You can, and we're now talking about leadership and organizational culture, you can liberate about 10 to maximum 15% of an individual's energy by what we call formally sanctioned authority, which is, I ask you to do this, and I think because I'm your boss. Or you shall do this because I have the title. Or you're requested to do that because I'm part of that power game in which you are playing. People accept up to 15%. This means that 85 to 90% of the individual's energy is not being liberated when you do that. So leaders who have a very authoritarian leadership style and who think by shouting hard and being very aggressive, even if it is hidden aggressive, which is still aggressive, they think that they will liberate people's energy, but that doesn't happen. People will say yes, but they think no. And once they're out of the room, they go and speak with their colleagues. Don't you think this is just unbelievable? Have you seen what they are doing? I cannot imagine. I'm not going to do that. I don't know how to say it. I mean, I don't dare to say it, but that is not going to happen. So people start talking, people start being slower, people start being disconnected, people start being disengaged. The way to turn this around is to bring in leadership where people really do it because they respect you, because they understand why they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do, because you give purpose to their action. You allow them to blossom, you allow them to become better in who they are, in how they do it. I truly believe, by research we have done, that almost all of the enterprises have been created by entrepreneurs, obviously, who had a purpose. Not necessarily that they made it such a clear definition, like this is my higher purpose, but they all wanted to contribute something because they invented a new product, because they figured out something in a way of doing that is new, because they did research and they can now bring in a new therapy or a new medicine or a new vaccine or something else that is helping people to live better, longer. There is very little organizational entrepreneurs who said, you know what, I want to create an enterprise and I want to become very rich with it. That is my purpose for the organization. That's maybe the result, but it's rarely to never the initial initiative, the initial objective. And then what happens is then you have the second generation. And then you have the third generation. And they kind of like start thinking like, oh yeah, what was that purpose of our grandfather? And there's only very little organizations that through history, 5, 6, 10, 15 generations down the road, that remain connected to the purpose of the founder of the organization. The purpose, by the way, being the body, the soul of the organization. And this is a direct extension of the person who has created the enterprise. When you decide to create something, it is an extension of who you are, like your left arm is an extension of your body. So these entrepreneurs, they do something which is what they have to do. So it is really an extension of of themselves. So that spirit, that animo, goes into their organization. And then, after a couple of generations, you have external CEOs. And these CEOs, through evolvement of time, they don't really know what was the higher purpose. That is what happens in organizations, where the purpose from the entrepreneurs get dissolved, sort of like flies away in the attention, in the approach, and it is the new CEO with a new strategy who takes over. So my recommendation would be, go back to the higher purpose, because that is the soul of the organization. So organizations need to bring in purpose. Because increased performance, better financial results, without any doubt. People stay longer. The wrong people, they leave or are being evacuated from the organization. The right people come at your door and want to work for you. And what happens is, in the dynamic of your organization, people don't need all these procedures and these processes anymore because they understand what as an organization you stand for. And they start aligning together. So if you want to see if you, in one or another way, you're tapping into the right potential of your people, into the right performance energy of your people, check if initiatives happen in a spontaneous way. See if there is lots of conflicts or not. See if people will start working together, finding solutions to serve the higher purpose, not to contribute to the next quarter result. That is the result of the fact that people are connected to the realization of the higher purpose. So there's all kind of material benefits of bringing into an organization this higher purpose.